Okay, I am going to try this just one more time because if not, I am going to flip. But excuse me, let me adjust this here. I just recorded and my camera literally turned off because it needed to cool. And for the life of me, I do not understand what in Sam hell is this camera's problem. But I vaguely recall that it is one of those things where I think I need to plug it in because the battery is what overheats. I'll get to that another time. Saludo, mi gente. Welcome to the new moon in Taurus live channeling, not live, my bad, recorded. My day has been amazing, and I actually, the day of the new moon, which would have been Saturday, it was a tough day for me. And so I figured, let me give some energetic clearing space to myself and then come back when I'm feeling a little bit fresher. Now, granted, this is happening late at night, and soon I have to, sooner than later, turn in. But for now, I wanted to actually do a reading. So we're in the new moon in Taurus, and the new moon in Taurus is an earth sign. There's so many beautiful pieces that come with it, both light and shadow, in terms of characteristics or what the energetic beacon or signature of a Taurus as the astrological sign. And so, of course, we also have a solar eclipse, partial solar eclipse. So for this particular season or right now, it's not so much around trying to manifest new things, but really there are already things that are showing their face. Like people from where I come from would be saying, how you show your face around here. So the things that's showing their face in your life are things that have been bubbling up over time. And now that this eclipse season is here, then it just starts, that all that just starts coming up. And so wherever things land on your chart are what's going to be the indicator, right? So, which you already know, we have folks in the space that are all the astrological world is their wheelhouse. So for me, I use it as a support framework for seasons and times, but I am not heavily attached to it in that way either. Although incredibly valuable, right? So it does inform my life. It's not my particular wheelhouse. So you know where to go if you want to get an in-depth reading in terms of your personal chart and to figure out what's happening for you in this season. But being that what we're doing here is really, I drew these cards as a place of just asking and inquiring, which asking and inquiring are like the same freaking word. What is the energy that we need to focus on? What do we need to embrace? And what do we need to release? And so, as you know, the focus is the center, embrace is the left, and on the right, it's actually the releasing, the letting go. And so I see release and letting go as really interesting places because sometimes we're pointing to the thing that needs to be let go of in order for you to receive and embrace. But also sometimes the places where you need to receive and embrace and let go of some other ideas, right? So I said that in that way because that sometimes, for example, here we have like letting go or release, trust yourself. So the objective is to trust yourself and let go of things that cause you to be in a relationship of distrust with yourself. And that also means watching who you're listening to and who's talking to you, which is why this card is asking us to observe. The observer is coming from a place in which you are no longer entertaining anyone else's mindset. You're not entertaining anyone else's stuff. You're actually in constant observation of the ways you need to trust yourself much more fully, and or the ways in which observing yourself can develop a deeper way of trusting. And rather than being an active, like, I'm thinking fire in addition, right? Like active engagement or action oriented engagement, this is really asking you to take a moment and really think about and observe your surroundings, your behavior, or whatever place is showing up in your life during this this framework and this window in the new moon window, and the Rosh Chodesh, it's Rosh Chodesh Iyar, which is on our in terms of the Hebrew calendar, the Jewish calendar, and it's the month that we're stepping into. And so really we're still counting the Omer, right? So we're on our way to the place of harvesting, of gathering the harvest, because we're growing something, we're watching it, we're tending to it. In the Jewish world, we are coming soon, when we're done counting the Omer, into High Holy Days, which are a series of festivals that call us into a deeper place of accountability, transformation, return. Really, just so much beautiful language around Yom Kippur, Shavuot, Sukkot, just so much beauty. And part of this is really recognizing that the center focus cards are calling us to be in the place of operating and centering our focus and the actual, not just the knowledge and not just the action, but action and knowledge together, which create wisdom, which allow you to step into your sageful self, because you're actually integrating the info. And what's fascinating to me, which I'm going to try not to go too far on a squirrel with this one, but it's really interesting to me when we get to places in our lives where we think we are in full sage mode, like we have engaged in the knowledge in such a way that we know it. And the knowing that happens with integration and action together, right? Like these things together is different than the knowing because you can verbally articulate it. Sage wisdom moving from legacy. So this says this card is the legacy of light, which is just a beautiful accompaniment to the sage, because here we have the display of the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And I believe in like four type of archetypes. So for me, it's like maiden, mother, queen, and crone, because they're different stages of life. Having said that, bringing it back to this alignment, right, which is, I love, like if we put this together like that, is really because inside you, your legacy is one of light and already exists inside of you. And the wisdom is available, the knowledge and the opportunities for action are available in you, but yet you have not focused on integrating that. When you're stepping into the place of wisdom, the place of knowing and action being integrated in terms of how you're actually living your life, here's some of the things that I've witnessed that are incredibly powerful and power points. Is that you can usually tell when a person is actually in their sageness and their sageful self when they are not as how can I say this? I've been thinking about this all week because I've been teaching in the prison, and one of the things I've been trying to express is that often enough, when somebody actually has a deep wisdom about something, they don't, they are not as, I think of diarrhea of the mouth, which is just an awful visual, but they are not as chatty with it. Folks are not as chatty with it. And what I mean by that is that folks who haven't actually integrated things into their lives or into their beingness, you can smell the bullshit a mile away. They can talk about it in a knowing way, but in an action way, they have no grounding in that. They have no anchor in that. And while some people, we live in a society that's thoroughly impressed by people being able to sound smart or sound deep, most folks are not actually taking the time to look for where that depth is actualized, like it's inhabited, not just talked about. And the reason why I say that like that, because more often than not, I find that when I am working with a piece of knowledge and wanting to integrate it into my life and figure out what are the actions so that I can integrate, I am conscious and intentionally connected with the fact that I am in practice with something. And I have no like simple, quick-witted ways of saying things, that I'm deeply grappling with, if you will. And so I say this because I want you to be able to look within yourself and check, are you actually connected to the deeper wisdom in your life? Are you actually in relationship with the knowledge that you're taking in and the action oriented like expression of it in your life in totality? Or have you gotten used to just talking about shit because it sounds cool, right? Like that thing. And so when you're actually in deep lesson and in deep living from this particular place where you are saging it, you're like, as in like you are really pulling in the wisdom and living from that place and connected to the lineage that is moving through you, you're just not, it's just not as easy to talk or even just to say things. You see it in a person's life when they're deeply in relationship with it. So we're being called to, in this like new moon window with the eclipse and all of this stuff happening, we're being called to whatever area of your life has been coming up. And it's not anymore where it's like, oh, this garden of yours that you've been growing forever, just go ahead and add more plants to it. No, the thing here is that you're going to need an entirely new plot, and you're going to have to begin from a place of what we would call beginning from scratch. Not because you're at base of the amateur, but because this aspect of your life no longer fits the frame with which it was built, and it's ready for a reinvention entirely. And you must start with a clean slate. You can't start with the same old ideas and the same old ways of being and thinking. And so what we are called to embrace in this wilding and diving for light, embracing that this is going to be our relationship, is coming back to a place where we are actually really inhabiting the medicine that is yours, connected to the light that is moving through you. Connected, like you got to go in deeper with yourself to the full embodiment, to the full expression, to the expression that is not contained by words, that is not contained solely by actions, right? And what I mean by that is that you can't just say shit, right? Like you can't just like say a thing and there you've arrived. But that now, when you plant new seeds, when you're planting or seeking to manifest a different inhabitation, you have to clean the slate, you have to dive for light, you have to check and kind of open and expose yourself to a wilding that allows you to reconnect with that which is not contained inside of yourself, that which is not figured out, but that which is living in deep relationship with the mystery. Right? Because what you're being asked to embrace is actually the idea that you can trust yourself. You can be in the place of observing, because through you is moving, the divine light is moving. Through you, it's happening. The shift is happening. So you're embracing this aspect, which is not always an articulated knowing, but it's a knowing that moves in the spirit realm. And in this way, you're actually releasing and stepping into a place where you're going to observe and trust yourself. You're going to really allow the integration, which calls us to say, hey, okay, what are the cards at the bottom? Well, here were the cards that were at the bottom. You have follow your own rhythm and the power card. Why? Because this is the energy that's going to support you fully transforming this area of your life that is ready for reinvention. It could be your views around relationships. It could be your views around romantic relationships. It could be your views around yourself, where you're going, where you're coming. It could be your views around what you think you should be doing, right? I mean, we can go a million different places, but there are areas of your life that have come to the forefront asking to be tended to in a different way, asking for you to follow your own rhythm, because when you're in this space, this is what's going to show up for you, is the power and the impetus to move and inhabit the rest of this, which is really, really, really about focusing on your legacy of light. It's already there in your DNA. And I'm not one of those people who, I mean, if you would have caught me 10, 20 years ago, probably, I was really about, the darkness is going to kick your ass if you keep on fucking around type of thing. As I've gotten older, for me, While I recognize there's shadow, there's darkness, I do believe that there's spirits that are not looking to be beneficial, but love to cause havoc. But I don't see us as vulnerable to those things as I kind of grew up with understanding, right? Because I believe that when there is fear around things, the state that actually puts you in is in that state in which you are repelling that which is good, because your energetic focus is on the what we would call the negative, or whatever the bullshit is. Do I think people can try to evil eye your ass? Absolutely, unequivocally. Do I think that their shit is that powerful in the ways of like it can actually stop your blessings, or stop your receiving, or stop your evolution or innovation? No. I think that people can send ill will, and this is why some of the things that I'll be working with, and I already work with, but I want to actually offer these in my shop, is really, your evil eyes, evil eyes, your, the protection against the evil eye. I think protection is necessary. I think protection is something that, in the same way you're curating, tending to the light, you tend to your anchors and your boundaries of protection, right? I think that's important, but not as the primary, I have to do this because if not, fill in the blank. But that creating anything requires that it have boundaries, and that it have that it be covered, right? Like anchored in affirmations, or anchored in the energetic beacon that you want it to have, and that you want it to be maintained at. And so one of the things that's really important here is that while you have already, there's so much coming forward for you, I want you to think about, like, what are the boundaries that you can set in order to protect what's emerging. But I also want you to think of it as boundaries are a necessary process in the same relationship to learning, growing, and knowing, right? And that when you are shifting in your life, you want to have boundaries around that. You want to be mindful as part of, in the same way that I want you to have joy. And so I say all of this just to bring in the component of, when we're in this space of reclaiming or allowing the legacies that we come from to kind of move and bubble through us, what tends to happen is that we look for others who are coming from that same orientation or space, so that it doesn't feel alone, or you don't feel like you're going bananas because you're doing things that you don't understand where they're coming from. But I think we're moving into a time and a space where it's really about that deep trust in yourself, and allowing those new things and old ancient things to come through you, and trusting them at the same time. And not just being mindful of like the negative shit or curses and shit like that coming through your family line, because I think there's a place and there is work that needs to be done around that. But I find that we want to do more work around those things than we want to do around how we're reassigning our own energetic signature. How are we reinventing our own energetic holding? And so here in this new moon in Taurus, where everything is earthy, grounding, and sometimes the ground gets fallow because it hasn't been tended to well, we're really being asked, in whatever area of your life is coming forward, what are the things that that are emerging, that are asking for you to reinvent yourself, and no longer even try to pick your sustenance from a garden that you planted when you were in an entirely different energetic signature. So here is our new moon anchoring kind of embodiment. Embracing, the focus is to trust yourself and trust the legacy of light, but more to the place of sage, applying, inhabiting the wisdom, than to the place where you're not yet fully integrated. You can't build trust in yourself if you don't believe yet within yourself that this is moving through you. Your ancestral legacy, lineage is moving through you. And if your belief is that it's the good things and the positive things and the generative things, well, there you go, right? Then you're embracing this mystery. You're embracing this idea that you're diving for light. You're ready to change and entirely re-script and rewrite the narrative in this area or areas of your life. No longer trying to patch it up with band-aids, no longer trying to put the pieces together, no longer trying to do that, but actually starting entirely fresh, which will require you to not only examine your belief systems around things in those areas, but also what are the thoughts that are following the beliefs, and what are the actions that are actually limiting you because your belief system is antiquated. And so with all that, we're being asked to trust ourselves, to be in a observe yourself, observe that area of your life, observe it so that you can understand the texture of what is asking to be transformed in the hugest way. So there's your reading for this new moon in Taurus. I am excited, and I also need to get to bed because I have a really long day tomorrow. I thank you for your love. Thank you for your prayers and your support during this difficult season. As I continue to navigate along with my family, another challenging and devastating experience. And yet I find myself finding beauty and hope and support in so many of the small things. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your love, your generosity, your support, all of the things. I'm so glad that you're walking here with me, and I hope that this reading has been nourishing and supportive, and that as we're going through this particular cycle, I was using a lot of earthy metaphor and garden metaphors and, farming in terms of like Shavuot coming. Again, it's a festival of the harvest where you give the first fruits, the first offerings. And if you can, if you do follow the Jewish calendar and honor the high holy days, and you're counting the Omer, this is a really good place to start looking at, like in the countdown, if you will, to this place of first fruits, to this place of dedication, of consecration, to the deepest expression of you and your ancestral wisdom. Allow yourself to be in observation and allow it to change. Give yourself permission to really shift your entire timeline. And so there'll be more about that a little later on, but I'm sending deep love, blessings to you, and we'll talk again soon.